See, as Ankit was talking about, I have been involved with building couple of my own startups in the last decade or so, and have also been involved with many startups as both as an advisor, mentor, and a board of director. And I just wanted to talk about how to build your teams for the startup which you may be having or planning to have. And this is based on, or in some ways distilled from everything which I have learned while I built my own companies, as well as what I've seen founders doing successfully in their companies, especially companies where I've been involved. So, talking about building a startup team. To my mind, startup teams are just like the way you construct a building. Startup team building process is exactly the same. Okay, and I will talk about a little bit more as we go along and on why I say that. But this is what I've seen in my experience. So the way we'll look at building a house, the way we look at building a big, tall office building, where startup team building exercise is exactly the same, involves the same steps. So, for example, that's the next slide. All of you want to build this. All of us want to build this. So once we finish our startup, we want to have a flourishing company, growing, ever growing, growing really tall, big, and so on and so forth. All of us want to build this, but it takes rigor and it takes its own steps actually. And that's the kind of talk I wanted to give today and understand what are the steps which you will need. So what are the different steps in this? It takes its own steps, it takes its own rigor. So when you start creating a building, basically you will start with the foundation, which is the single most important step in creating the building. And that foundation, you build the foundation, then of course you look at creating the pillars, actually the first set of pillars which are important. Then you look at building the first floor, and then of course you replicate a building from there and go on. So this is the 4-phase approach which I was talking about, and you can see that you start with building the foundation, and then you get your team, which basically helps you pick the first set of pillars, the first floor, and of course you continue to replicate the first floor and you get such a beautiful building which you want to build. Anyway, I'll continue to talk about it, and as this presentation comes up, we can go through the presentation. So when you are looking at building the foundation, that's the single most important part in this, and that will define, if you are looking at building a tall building, how tall you go, how nice a building can be, will be decided by so this is how you go about it. You build a strong foundation, you create the strong pillars to build the next floor. You build the first model floor and then just replicate as you go along. So why you build a strong foundation, and that's the most important part. Founding teams are there to build the foundation, and of course the most important thing is what's your vision? How tall the building you want to build? What is your roadmap? And I talk about it a little bit more. Just a story which some of you might have heard is that when it's a construction site, and the work is going on to build a temple, and a person is going by, he's seeing all these construction workers there, and he asks the first person, and he says, what are you doing? This guy says, I am breaking this stone, can't you see? Then he goes to the second person and asks, what are you doing? And the second person says, I'm building this pillar for a temple. And he goes to the third person and asks, what are you doing? And that guy says, I'm building the most beautiful temple in this world. And that's what defines your vision. So how's your vision, what is your vision, and how tall you want to build the building? And stronger the foundation, the higher the building will go. So what is very important when you're starting a company or starting your own business is that you get a very strong founding team in place. Because this stage, as you can see in the picture which I chose, is that the stage will need a lot of digging, it will need a lot of patience, and it needs a lot of unbounded perseverance. And I say that unbounded because you'll keep facing a lot of issues. Issues will come and go, and sometimes you will be really lost, wondering whether it's worth going forward, not going forward, and all those times the perseverance plays the most important role. So having a strong founding team in place is very important. And how do you get that founding team in place is the next question actually. So what do you do for the founding team? What's the most important part when you are building a founding team for the company? In my experience, what I have seen with the companies I've been involved in is that the most important part is that for every business which you're building, you have to identify what are the core skills for that business, and who qualifies to be a founding team member. And that's an important point. Founding team members are there to build the foundation. They basically are the people who carry your vision forward. Okay, and it's important that you select the people in such a way that you define the core strengths, the core capabilities, the core skills which are required to build a business. And every business will have 3 or 4 key skills. Okay, for example, if you're building an internet business, you could need skills in internet marketing. You could need skills in technology. You could need skills with understanding consumer business, consumer behavior. Okay, and you need to understand that when you're building the founding team, all the core skills of that founding team should be there actually in the founding team. So if you are looking at building the core team, so you identify the core skills actually. So if you identify the 3 core skills, you get the core skills needed for the business and the team as much as possible. So it's very important because you are creating a business. There could always some ups and downs. There could be some pivoting right in the beginning in your team. It's very important that core skills are there, because without that, your business model, your original business model prototype could have its own set of issues. So it's very important the core skills needed. And if you're building an enterprise software product company, you may need somebody who understands technology very well. You may need somebody who understands B2B selling very well. You also need to have somebody who can have the software developers team management skills. It's very important to get those together. So that's something which you should look for right in the beginning. Shared goals is a very important thing, second. And thirdly, very important with the similar values. And this is a very important point because all of you have to work together. Remember, you'll be spending more time with your co-founding team than probably you spend with your better half. Okay, and we have seen that. I have surely seen that in my life, and I've seen that with a lot of entrepreneurs because they end up spending a lot of time in the office working. That's why it's very important the shared goal and similar values have to be there. You have to build a team in such a way that your 1 + 1 should become 11. Nothing else will be an option, because nothing else will allow you to get the real value out of it. Okay, so it's very important that you look for core skills. It's very important that you look for the shared goals and you look for similar values. Another point I wanted to mention over here, the values, there's nothing right or wrong value. Everybody is starting a business for a particular reason, and you should make sure that that particular reason is common amongst all the co-founders. It's very important to do that. And I mean, some people, you don't need necessarily to have very lofty ideas. If you say, I'm getting into a business to build a big business and make a lot of money, so be it. It's not a bad value to have, and you just must make sure that all of us are working with the same purpose, same goal. Other important learning which I have had is that you should not mix personal and professional relationships in your business. So friends and relatives are good because good to have, not necessarily they'll be good professional partners for you, because you spend time with them, you know them well, but you don't necessarily need them, you don't necessarily know them very well from a working relationship perspective. And it's very important that you don't mix the friends and relatives. I've seen a lot of husband and wife teams which have not necessarily done well together. It's one thing to be close to each other in your hostel or in your company or in your house. It's very different to be together 14 to 16 hours and working together and building a company. So once you're building a core team, it's very important that you have the other 3 things which are important, that your core skills, shared goals, and similar values. And then of course you can find that in your friends and relatives, nothing like that. This is the next core team basically. So what are once you have built your basic foundation, you've got your basic prototype in place, product is working, you are looking for the next set of people who are that is what you call your core team. It will be next 5 or 6 key people. These could be functional experts, could be marketing people, HR people, technology, sales, depending on your business, what skills you are looking for as the next skills, you will hire these people. So how do you get that team together? And this team will be a little different from a core founding team. Here, of course, you hire them more for passion and skill in that order, because you need to understand that new businesses are as much about ownership, hardship, and passion as much as about skills actually, which is very important for new businesses. When you are building with the core team, you get them for passion, because these are people who should share your passion about building a business. You need to understand they are joining your company mostly because of you, and second for the business. It's very important that they share your passion. And in this case, also an added advantage you have as you have built a prototype or you have got the service offerings in the market, you know that what you are building for, what you are going ahead with. So you can basically train them for business. Other thing which is important, until you are getting into a business which has been there for many, many years and you are adding one more company in that business vertical, you're always doing something new, something innovative. And for that, people may have similar skills, people may have relevant skills, they will not have necessarily the complete skills which you're looking for. So it's very important that you hire for attitude in this stage and you train them for your business, what you're looking at building. So hire for attitude, train for business is the mantra at this stage. There's stage 2 when you are building the pillars and probably the starting of first floor. You should have shared goals, you should have shared values, because this is your next management team. As you become bigger and bigger, these are people along with you who will represent the company, both internally as well as externally. And it's very important that they continue to share your goals and your values and have very, very high passion for building the company as you have. Moving on to the next slide. So now you have reached a stage where the company is set, you know your business is working, you know what you sell, you know to whom you are selling, where you want to go. Now this is your growth phase actually, where you have your product is basically you are basically a little bit down the road on the runway and you are looking at taking off. You build the first floor. You have got the trial and error learnings in place. You know you have basically got some customers working. Now you're looking at growing your company. So what you want to do from here onwards? When things are working, you know the first business model. You need to just replicate. Okay. And the team requirement over here will change again a little bit. Here skills become more important because you exactly know what you're looking for. Exactly know what you are building towards, and your skills become very, very important. And of course, passion, common goals, and shared values are important at this stage, but these become secondary to the skill because the skill can be very well defined. And at this stage, once you're looking at scaling, it's very important that you get people who can do the job given to them. Of course, they should have entrepreneurial bent of mind, and of course, they should have ownership so they can continue to build the company as you want them to. But skills become very, very important. So these are 3 different stages, and the big difference is that when you are looking at co-founders, you have to make sure that core skills are there as much as possible. When you're looking for core team, they should have as much right attitude as possible. You can train them for business. And then when you're again building the company to the next level and setting it for growth, it's very important that you get the right skills in place. You need to make sure that these are people who can take your vision forward with their skills, of course, are aided by their attitude, passion, common goals, and shared values. So that basically defines the 3 stages and how you build that. I just wanted to talk a little bit about in the next slide that what are some must-dos as you grow actually. Okay, and the important point in that must-dos as you grow is that you must personally meet and interview every person you want to hire till your first floor is complete. And that's very, very important point because the way you can sell your vision, and that holds true both for your external customers and prospects as well as for employees. You have to sell your vision to them. All of them need to get on board all the time. So it's very important the founders should meet all the key people in the beginning till your first floor is complete. Okay, you meet them, interview them, you sell your vision to them, keep talking to them. Because they are joining mostly because of you. They get impressed with you. They come less for the business. I mean, if you see even from a funding perspective, you must have heard many places that when the VCs are funding a company, they'll always look for the right team in the first place, and that's very, very important. People join because of you, and then of course business is important. So it's very important that you are visible and you are with them. You should communicate, and communicate some more. You should understand this is something which is never enough actually. There's never an overdose of communication. There's always your presence, your visibility, your communication is very, very important. Another important thing for you to do is that you should always answer tough questions yourself. And you know, as you build your company, there will be more and more tough questions. Sometimes some client will go away, sometimes the product will not be performing. Sometimes there could be major issues from regulatory perspective, compliance perspective, and your team expects you to be there and answer those questions. And if there's a blame to be taken, you take the blame and make it work. But you answer tough questions. to behave like the foundation, and that's what I always believe, that inverted pyramid is the way to go. When you say you're the founding team member, you have to be in the foundation. You have to help the people. You have to basically support everyone in your company. The great people organizations you will see in any scenario will always be inverted pyramids. Moving to the next slide, I wanted to talk about some don'ts actually. So we talked about do's and some don'ts actually, and I think I touched a little bit upon it earlier also. You should never fake values because it never works. The companies which you are building, unless you are onto some great idea and build something and get out in 2-3 years, in any company's case, you will end up building a great business in next 7 to 10 years. It's very important to stick to your core values. Never fake values, it won't work. Don't hide behind system and process. Early stage companies, as I was saying, need a lot of personal touch than the process. Because people have to be there, people have to work long enough hours, they have to own the product, they have to own the problems, they have to solve the problems. Okay, and it's very important that at that time, you don't hide behind system and process as far as people are concerned. You have to basically have the personal touch. People have to see you in the front. People have to see you helping them, driving them, working with them closely. Your visibility, as I was saying, is very, very important. So don't hide behind any system and process. You should communicate the tough decisions yourself. There will be times when you may be making the company smaller. You could be letting the people go. There could be times when you say that, look, market is down and I cannot raise funding at this stage and I'm delaying it. Those decisions for people should be communicated by you. People should see you as honest, coming in the front. One important perspective over there, which I have seen many companies not doing well, the founder will get the core message and you use the same words also. So if, for example, even if you have a company which is like a senior management, mid-management and probably very junior people in your company, what message you want to give to them should be same. Okay, the core message has to be same and words need not be for the different teams. So the way you communicate to your top management versus the way you communicate, what language you use to communicate the same message will be different. And I'll take an example over here. For example, if you're looking at raising funding, and everybody is very interested in your company to know when are you raising funding, what are you doing, then what kind of valuation are you looking for, whether you can raise money, not raise money, how market is seeing it. The core message will be same, but what you share with different teams will be different. So everybody in your company may know that you have raised funding, company people may know that you are looking at building the company to the next level, scaling. What details you share with each one of them could be different and should be different because not everybody needs to have the same set of numbers or same set of information. Okay, they should have the same message. This is something which is really, really worth practicing because I've seen a lot of companies confusing their employees or confusing their team members with using the same words as well when they are presenting the core message. Moving to the next slide, I'll talk about some nuts and bolts. Actually, these again some questions which I have heard from previous sessions. The questions come on some 2 or 3 key topics. Ankit, move to the next slide. So how do I find co-founders? That's another question which a lot of people always ask actually, because you may get a good idea and you say I want to start this idea, but you may not be able to find co-founders very easily. So what do you do actually? You basically network and you network some more. Okay, it's very important that you are going out, meeting the potential co-founders, you talk about your business, you see them in different scenarios, understand what they're capable of, what they could do, what they could not. Important point is that you continue to apply your checklist to all prospective co-founders. That is core skills, shared values and common goals. Very important that you drive it, understand and do it like that. Of course, you have to come clean on every discussion point actually. That's something which I have seen where when you are, especially if you have started yourself and you're looking at adding co-founders, what shares you are giving them, what ownership you are giving them, how it will vest, what will happen for each one of those. You have to make sure that you're coming clean on each of those discussion points actually. It's very important because a little bit of hard one also in the core team will not allow your company to reach its true potential. So it's very important that when you are entering into an agreement along with your co-founders, they should exactly know what they're getting into. Okay, and you have to be really sure that you are discussing what ownership they have, how it will play out, what kind of numbers are there, when you are raising funding, how their ownership, how their liquidation preference and so on and so forth will change. Those things are very, very important for them to know. There should be no surprises with your core team. There should be no surprises with your co-founding team. Very important that you come clean on every discussion point. even if you over communicate in that case and tell them everything which they need to know, it's very important to do that. And you need to understand you will spend more time with them in your life, at least for those years, than you spend with the better half. It's very important to be honest in that. Can you move to the next slide, please? What happens to stock options actually? So co-founders should ideally own common stocks actually. So all the co-founders, is good that they own common stock rather than looking at options from a founding team perspective. It's a very good practice to have vesting for founders as well, because it will keep you accountable. So if, for example, you as a founder want to own 70%, it's important that you also have vesting for yourself as well as your other co-founding team members, because what will happen, that your vesting will take care of your performance, and you should be accountable yourself as well, because sometimes your co-founders sometimes they realize that it's not what they wanted to get in, it's not what they want to build, and they may look at getting out at some point in time. And it's important that vesting takes care of their ownership in the company, and they remain and they get value for as long as they've been there and built value, and not just because they were the co-founders. They should not have access to all 100% common stock which they got. Okay. Other thing is that option should be decided, the total pool should be decided based on your plans for next 3 years. So it's another mistake I have seen with some companies. They will create an option pool, and 20% is a good number to keep as option pool. But what they will do, they will give options to the first set of people who join. But what you should do, you should draw out a best case scenario for yourself for next 3 years. See what kind of team you will end up hiring, create an organizational structure, see what kind of team you will end up hiring, see their experience, see the level, and based on that you decide if you have to divide your 20% pool amongst all those people. When you keep putting that, based on that you decide options and give it to people. Of course, people who join in first year, we should have better stock options, so you can have a discounting as you go along. So if somebody gets 100 options for the same position in first year, the same position next year could get 90 and third year 80 and things like that, because they're taking lesser and lesser risks as companies growing and becoming more stable. But it's very important to have a 3-year window, otherwise you'll end up doing away your option pool in first year. Don't worry so much about whether you're giving a 4% to somebody or 10% to somebody. You decide based on the level, create a system and give options as per that, because vesting will take care of the performance. I mean, everybody starts in first year, you can see how they're performing. The vesting should take care of the performance, and if you think somebody is not performing, it's good to part ways and get that in stock options back into the options pool. Also, from my perspective and based on my learnings, when you give options after you explain value, and don't necessarily need to give options at every level, level in the company. I mean, you can also decide that you will give options to the mid management, because in many cases what is happening is that some employees may not be necessarily able to value the options as you think they should value, and they'll always disconnect based on that. So it's important that you explain the value, what they are getting out of their options. You show them what is possible if they contribute and build the company as you are envisaging or as is the vision, and then you give the options out so that there's a proper value given from their side to the options they are getting. Moving to the next slide. There's another interesting thing which has become very useful in today's time, that is board of advisors. It is a very interesting approach with which you can add skills to your team without necessarily, if you are unable to hire a certain set of people based on their experience or standing, it's good to get their learnings, and it's good to create a board of advisor for yourself and put them. I myself have been a board advisor to a few companies, and I've seen this work well given certain pointers. Of course, you can leverage experience from the market. The most important thing is that look for key skills which could still be missing in your team. It could be experience, it could be gray hair, it could be networking, bouncing of ideas, reality check, or anything actually. But it's very important that you get people who can really add value to your team. Okay, you finalize what you need from a board of advisor. It could be subject matter expertise, it could be industry expertise, it could be opening doors for you. You look for relevant advisors, but also do good reference checks for them. I mean, now today's socially connected world, you can always find their profiles on LinkedIn. You figure out what they have done exactly, do good reference checks informally, and then get them on board. because it's again something where you want to get the maximum value out of them. You could use options to compensate them till you raise money, and of course once you raise money you can enter into a separate agreement, and of course do regular reviews with them as well to check if you are getting value. So get board of advisors. They of course could be senior people to you, but it's important that you hold them accountable to the purpose for which you have got. So I think with this we reach the end of the presentation. So I just wanted to say in the end that basically I want to wish you a happy building for building your building to the peak which you are envisioning. Of course, you can ask questions over here. If you have any questions, this is my email ID. You can always write to me. I'll be more than happy to help.